Welcome to Mindset Saga. Today we tell the story of a man who learned that dreaming alone cannot change his destiny. In a small village lived an old man known for laziness, dreaming all day under the shade of a large tree. He spent his hours visualizing grand plans of owning land and big shops, but he never lifted a finger to start. His wife often warned him with a heavy heart that life is not sustained by sweet dreams, but by hard work. Yet he ignored her wisdom, believing that his grand ideas were enough to one day bring fortune to his poor household. Days turned into years, and the household remained in poverty while the old man continued to sleep and dream of wealth. One evening, his thin grandson walked into the kitchen, searching desperately through empty pots, finding absolutely nothing to eat for dinner. The boy looked at his grandfather with innocent hunger, asking why there was no food despite all the grandfather's big plans. For the first time, shame pierced the old man's heart as he realized his imaginary empire could not fill a stomach. The next morning, before the sun rose, the dreamer finally woke up from his slumber and decided to face reality. He went to the local fields and started working as a hired laborer, trading his idle time for manual labor. The work was grueling, and the sun was unforgiving, but he persisted, driven by the memory of his grandson's hungry eyes. At the end of the day, his body ached as he received his wages, which were dishearteningly small for the effort. The money vanished instantly, used to pay off old debts and buy medicine, leaving almost nothing for the next day. Despite his hard labor, the roof still leaked when it rained, and the cycle of poverty seemed impossible to escape. He realized that working until exhaustion was not the answer if the money disappeared as quickly as it came in.
One day, he overheard wealthy men saying that the secret to security was saving every single penny you possibly can. Inspired by this new idea, he found an old glass jar and decided it would be the vessel for their future. He began putting every spare coin into the jar, hiding it under his bed, believing this stash was their salvation. To fill the jar, the family ate less and lived harder, sacrificing their present comfort for the hope of future security. Months passed slowly, and the jar eventually became heavy with coins, representing all the sweat and hunger they had endured. When the jar was finally full, the old man smiled, believing he had finally accumulated enough wealth to solve their problems. He marched to the market with confidence, intending to buy a large supply of corn to feed his family for months. But the merchant shook his head, explaining that prices had soared, and his savings were now worth only half as much. He stood frozen in shock, realizing that while his money sat idle in the jar, the world had become more expensive. He learned a harsh lesson that day. Saving cash alone is dangerous because money loses its value over time. Looking up, he saw his neighbor living comfortably, not by saving coins, but by raising chickens that produced eggs daily. He observed how their wealth grew naturally. Eggs became food, and surplus eggs became new chicks, multiplying their value continually. A light bulb went on in his mind. He decided to use his remaining savings to buy assets that would grow. Instead of hoarding the cash, he spent it all on a few chickens, choosing to make his money move and work. He and his grandson built a simple coop, understanding that they were not just raising animals, but building the future system. Soon, the chickens began to lay eggs. It was a small return, but it was consistent and valuable every single day. The family finally had nutritious food on the table. The hunger vanished, replaced by the satisfaction of their smart investment. They ate what they needed and sold the surplus, using the profit to buy more chickens, expanding their little farm. The flock grew larger and larger. The money that was once stagnant in a jar was now alive and multiplying. With the profits, they repaired the leaking roof and improved their lives. Real wealth had come from investment, not hoarding. He taught his grandson that a single productive egg is worth more than a static jar of coins in hiding. Money kept still is like water in a cupped hand. It eventually dries up. Money invested is like a flowing river. The boy learned that true security comes from assets that produce value, ensuring that they would never be hungry again. The lazy dreamer had transformed into a wise investor, proving that it is never too late to change your mindset. Do not just save your money to let it lose value. Plant it like a seed and watch it grow.
Let your money work for you, even if you start small. This is the only path to true and lasting freedom. The village remained the same, but the man's life was forever changed by the simple power of smart financial thinking. Remember, poverty is not just a lack of money, but a lack of understanding on how to make money grow. Start making your money work for you today, no matter how small. Thank you for watching Mindset Saga. Please subscribe now.